All right, the last episode of The Boys Season 3 just came out, and it was so good. I mean, it was phenomenal. I mean, every episode has just been hit after hit after hit. It's been so good, and so many deaths. So many deaths. Not Black Noir, though. He's got that special healing ability. It's been established in Season 2. But just so good. I mean, I can wait for Stranger Things to come out. I don't think I can wait a year for The Boys. Let's just jump into it. First of all, there's this recurring theme that we keep seeing in the show with the father-son struggles. And... Okay. Black Noir, what is this? Well, that's gross. You can take those back. There you go. So father-son struggles, which I very much enjoy because I have daddy issues. And, I mean, the big thing is the deal with Ryan. And who's going to parent him? Is it going to be Butcher? Is it going to be Homelander? Who's he going to go with? And we thinking was like, obviously it's going to be Butcher. Butcher is a very gray character. Just because he's doing good things doesn't mean he's a good character. But Homelander comes in, and every interaction that he's had with Ryan is actually surprisingly sweet. It makes sense why he's going with Homelander, and it just goes to show the writing that the boys put into it. I mean, it's just so intense, and we just know that Ryan's gonna go down this dark path. And speaking of dark path, Soldier Boy is terrifying. I mean, he's an absolute menace. You don't know what he's gonna say. Like how evil it's gonna be, how terrifying it's gonna be. You think he's gonna be sweet and intimate. Then next thing you know, 180. This show keeps upping the ante, and there's no safety net, which I love so much. Thank you. All right. No nuts. Nice. Anyways, just to wrap this up, because I do want to make this video quick. Shout out to Maeve, Queen Maeve. She's like one of the few people that actually gets a happy ending. You know, she never really wanted the superhero life, and she found a way out of it to have her own little peace of mind. And I have tons more to say about this, but we'll talk more about it on the show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I have, and thank you, Black Noir. Yeah, I had to pay him $50,000 to make that cameo.
Wow.
Yeah. Dan, I will invoice you.
I was lost on the name. I was like, I know this character from the show, but what is his name? Because he's always reminded me of like a guy from G.I. Joe. I always forget that guy's name too.
Snake Eyes?
Snake Eyes, yeah, he had a movie coming out.
Yep.
Last year?
Well, just watching that, what's interesting. The sense that I'm getting is that it's not like a Marvel movie where it's like we all have to team up against this bad guy. It seems to be a lot more about the interpersonal relationships, and just they happen to have superpowers.
There is not one instance where things are black and white. There are so many changing parts that go in. You know, they'll team up with this person even though they have like a whole vendetta, like that person like killed their girlfriend and they have to team up with them. Or, you know, things are always constantly changing, and it's just finding out who the big bad is. But that's changing. And especially in this season, there's like not betrayals, but people are kind of like jumping back and forth between that line of whose team they're on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know that was fast, but do you guys have any questions? I'm trying to be vague, but
I'll be honest. I know nothing about the show, and I feel like that really is a season 3 recap there, where I'm like,
yeah.
what I don't even know where to start there.
I know. I'm sorry.
It is intriguing.
Don't apologize.
I'm not apologizing. Who's apologizing?
No, Roland.
Roland,
No
don't
need to
apologize. It was a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And it did entice me. I may start watching it.
I think I will too.
Look at that. She's just copying me. But it's
No.
it looks interesting. It looks fun.
I like Carl Urban, so.
Carl Urban's the best. Oh my gosh, she's so cool. And in this show, you can tell that he has a lot of fun with the character because he's always just like balls to the walls, absolutely insanity. He's always doing. His character is supposed to be like the leader of the team, and what they're doing is taking down superheroes because in their world, if superheroes were actually real and people had these powers, there's no way they would be good. All good, at least.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that quote from, was it Lex Luthor and Batman versus Superman? Where he's like, he learned a long time ago that if God was all powerful, that he wouldn't be.
If God can't be all powerful if he's all good, and he can't be all good if he's all powerful.
Perfect.
That actually comes from a.
That's a dark quote.
Oh gosh, who was it? I want to say early 1900s, but that's been around. It's a big quote. Good time.
So all in all, I mean, season 3 of The Boys, it seems like I'm behind on the show, but I've sort of been on the outside looking in, and I usually don't care for spoilers, so I'm like, I totally look for that stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, this happened, I'll watch it anyway. But my understanding is this is the best season of the show so far, and it seems like it's only going to get better from here. Like, what do you think is going to be going down in season 4, and where do these characters go?
I am hesitant about season 4 just because what they did with my expectations of this season was just incredible. It truly was. Every episode was amazing. I think the average rating that they have this season was like a 9.7. So,
wow.
That's
I don't know if they're going to be able to keep that up. That's really high standards that they put themselves up to, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're still going strong. I don't think they're ending it next season either.
No, I don't think so. No,
yeah,
this is.
There is sort of a season 4 curse, where season 1 you're establishing, season 2 you have an idea of what you are. Season 3 is usually where like you've done a really good job of extrapolating on the themes and having fun with the characters. Season 4 is usually where it's like, okay, we're up in the air, now what? And it's a gamble. Like I've seen a lot of shows plummet at season 4.
Would you say that was the case for Stranger Things? Because their season 4.
Not for Stranger Things. Stranger Things had a totally different trajectory. It went really good, hey, and then finished off with okay.
I mean, but look, some shows, like I would argue, a lot of shows tend to hit their stride around season 4. Like I can give you like many examples. For example, Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think season 4, 5, and 6, or even season 3. I think were some of the show's best seasons, because usually a lot of shows are finding their way in the first couple of years, and then by the time you get to like year 3 and 4, you're basically like in the peak of your prime. And like Stranger Things is an example of that. Although Stranger Things has been really good almost from this start, and I think maybe season 3 was a bit of a dip, but I loved season 1 and 2, and then season 4 obviously is the best one yet. So
I have a question. Sorry. Oh, go ahead, Dan. Okay, Dan, I have a question for you about Star Trek. Is each season following its own story? Is each episode following its own story? Because I find that shows that usually it's like an episode to episode kind of thing usually figures itself out in the later seasons, as opposed to when the entire season is its own important story that it's building upon.
The Next Generation is like every season. It's episodic, but it's at the same time like characters will appear for a full season, and so you'll know what season you're watching.
Right.
So controversial. I actually like the first couple of seasons of The Next Generation the best.
Really? I mean,
I found it a bit more faithful to the original, which I like, and it started getting a little too science fiction heavy for me. That's not what the show's about for me.
Well, I do think, I mean, again, I think difference of opinion. I think some of their better like stories in terms of tackling issues that sci-fi I think does. Sci-fi as a genre I think is best put to use when it's tackling real life issues and doing it through allegories and metaphors. And I think and the Next Generation, I think, really picked up on the quality. I mean, first couple of seasons have great episodes. I'm just saying overall quality, I think, went up as the series went along. But to answer your question, Katyana, I think, I mean, all the Star Trek series up until the newer were the ones that are on exclusive to Paramount Plus, up until that new generation of Star Trek stories after the J.J. Abrams trilogy of movies. Every Star Trek show before then was episodic and it wasn't serialized. So they had like ongoing character arcs, and they would have a season story that sort of is going to start and end at the end of the season. But it wasn't, they had 23 episodes to fill. So you can't, I mean, I wish they did a 23 episode serialized season today, because I'm sure there's money and enough writers to put in a writer's room to make that happen. But it is a tall order. So
the thing is that, like, when you talk about how the nature of science fiction as being commentary on social or like moral issues, that really works when it's episode to episode, because you can make a point. When you're dragging that out for 5 or 6 seasons, you're making one point about good and evil, or what the right thing to do is. It starts getting really convoluted, and you lose the opportunity to make all of the points. And Star Trek particularly does a good job of, saying this character represents this type of thinking, this person represents this type, and this is what you do given this situation. And you're in for something new every single time, even though you're familiar with, the people.
Do you guys think that, though? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. No, sorry. Ask your question. I was just thinking out loud.
I was just going to say, do you guys feel that way, though? Like, regarding episodic shows that, it's a different situation each episode as opposed to, like, the entire season is... Do you feel like... Are there shows that you can think of examples where the later seasons would be better depending on what kind of show we're talking about? Does that make sense?
I think the format itself could work with any genre of show. It all depends on how good the writing is and how good the characters are. Because TV, so there's when you do screenwriting, take screenwriting classes or go to film school, which I'm sure all of us at one point have touched upon some of those elements. You'll probably remember they'll teach you that if you have a story in mind that's very plot driven and is very location driven, that's for a movie. When you have a story that has got fantastic characters, that's better for a TV show, because people watch TV shows for the characters more so than for locations and plot. As long as you can love and follow the characters, you can see them, go through whatever plot they have to go through, whatever location and circumstances. So I think in that sense, when it comes to episodic versus serialized, it doesn't really matter which format you pick. Obviously, nowadays they're producing on a bigger budgets, but with fewer episodes, so they can have a higher production quality overall. That lends itself to a serialized format, because it's easier to tell a serialized story over 8 episodes or 10 or 13 episodes than do something episodic. Like, for example, the X-Files tried to do that when they had their return seasons a few years ago, and they had a 6-episode season, an 8-episode season, and they tried to do that where that is one overarching story, and you have the first episode touch upon it, the season finale obviously did it, and maybe like they had an episode in the middle, but largely they had in between like 4 or 5, however many episodes were in the middle, they were like Monster of the Week episodes, which the original X-Files, I think, has some of the best Monster of the Week episodes of all time. But in that shorter format, they tried to repeat that episodic thing, and it didn't work as well. And I don't know if that came down to writing, or if it came down to just the fact that, it's 6 to 8 episodes, you want to be seeing your characters go through the main story the whole time, versus if you had 24 episodes, you're like, okay, they have plenty of time, I might as well watch them do something, that's just based on that 1 week. So yeah, I think
I've never heard that about television versus movies being driven by location versus characters. That's really interesting. But in the age of like miniseries, the lines have really been blurred. Do you see that affecting the quality of television? Like, do you think that's wrong to say like The White Lotus is something that had good characters, but was about the location. Like, it was and these miniseries tend to feel kind of like movies that you can take a day or a week to watch the next scene in.
Well, you could have anthologies. I mean, I think like you said, the lines have been blurred because I think now the boundaries are not there anymore that they used to have, like, or not boundaries, but like they used to have certain buckets. And then when you were producing content for cable or for network television, you had to go to these networks and pitch your show. And they would say, okay, well, if the gist of it is you're making a 30-minute comedy sitcom. And is it a single camera, a multi-camera? Like, is it going to have a live audience, or is it like with a laugh track? Or are you just a single camera, like, Parks and Recreation, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Office? Or is it like, Everybody Loves Raymond or George Lopez? So they would pigeonhole you in those kind of formats. With streaming, you don't have that anymore. And that's why, not every episode has to be 42 and a half minutes, because you need to account for 18 minutes of commercials, and you need to break it up into 5 acts because you will have 4 breaks in the middle. And now you can do 59-minute episodes, an hour, 10-minute, an hour and a half. Like Stranger Things had a 90-minute and 2.5-hour episode in this season.
Remember.
Yeah. So I just think the lines have blurred to the point where you can make a 6-episode series that feels like one really long movie, or you could make a 6-episode anthology-like series where each episode is its own thing, whether that means each episode is completely different, or that one 6-episode is like one story. Like there was a show on the USA Network which had Bill Pullman in it, and the first season had Jessica Biel in it as the main lead in there, and Bill Pullman's sort of the detective of the show, so he sticks around every season, but then the main character that is the focus of the story is different. And the way they ran that show was they would do 10 or 12 episode seasons, and each season was one contained story, and then they would move on to the next, kind of like what American Horror Story would do. But then you also have episodic anthologies like Black Mirror, where every episode is very much its own standalone piece. So now you can do basically anything. The rules are sort of not, they don't exist so much anymore. I mean, there's some limitations, and obviously, you have to still got to get somebody to greenlight your project. But nowadays,
here's a question for you. Would it work? Would it work in reverse? Do you think, because the lines have been blurred, like, could you do movies that felt episodic? Because everybody's trying to make sequels.
Well, that's like trilogy. Yeah, that's.
Isn't that the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yeah.
That's that's the answer, isn't it?
Isn't that what the MCU is?
Honestly, yes.
I don't think that's how it started. Like, in all fairness, I think if you look back at Phase 1 movies, especially, those movies you could like stand on their own, or like the Iron Man trilogy could stand on its own. But nowadays, like, think about it, right? The last time we saw Guardians of the Galaxy in their own film was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That took place before the 2 big Avengers movies, Infinity War, Endgame, and now they were also in the new Thor movie. So by the time you next catch up, if, for example, you decided to buy the theoretical box set of Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, the 3rd movie would make no sense whatsoever if you did not go and watch the Avengers movie that just came in between. And
although they could do a big time jump anyway, and that would just be, an impressive way to follow up.
I mean, but the point I'm trying to make is, like, regardless of whether it's intentional or not, the MCU has become basically like each movie is an episode of the MCU.
That's right. Great. Yeah. Yes.
Especially so there's your
answer. I'm satisfied. That was great. No, but that's the thing. When you can sit and watch, hour and a half episodes of Stranger Things, you can watch. You can binge 15 Marvel movies in a week. Is there an option like on Disney Plus to watch them in order? Like a playlist?
Think so.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, and by the way, there's like more like closer to 30 Marvel movies at this point.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's up there. It's up there. It's like 2 seasons worth, or if you're doing 13 episode seasons, it's almost like 3 seasons worth of movies.
We were talking about Arrested Development earlier, and Justin Hurwitz, yes, he was talking about originally cutting up season 4 again so that it felt more like the original. 3
I don't know why they didn't just do that originally.
They were breaking boundaries on Netflix. It was
can't
impressive.
do that if people already like what they like.
But it would be interesting if like they recut all of the Marvel movies as like and all of the shows, if you could cut them up into a miniseries, or just a series, and just like put together all of the things happening simultaneously, and I don't know.
It would take 93 hours.
To watch everything?
To watch everything 93 hours.
Wait, are you talking Arrested Development or the MCU?
The MCU. Yeah.
Okay.
You can watch Arrested Development again and again. First 3 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's franchises that have so much, like, the MCU is a franchise that has, actually, that's probably not even the highest number. If you look at, like, Star Trek, or if you look at, Star Wars, because Star Wars, still there's not that many movies and only a few TV shows. But Stargate, for example, had, like, over 200 episodes of television. So there's those kind of franchises that are, like, similar in nature. But obviously, you couldn't point at every episode of those shows or movies, franchises that would be produced to the level that every MCU project is, because their budgets are, like, much higher. So, I mean, there's a certain premium quality to it. I mean, no wonder Disney Plus has, like, the second most subscribers of any streaming service, despite Netflix having, like, a decade-long head start. So, yeah.
Man, I was not expecting that conversation, but I'm glad we had it. That was
neat.